Hello, my name is Mary. Welcome to Build Vibrant Health. Today we have Todd of Sedona Masters. I'm really excited to talk to you about all things health and vitality and wellness. We're going to talk about wild foraging or wild crafting. So Todd, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your story with wild crafting and how you got started in that?
Sure, Mary. So I'm just very aware of the land. I've always been that way. When I was younger, I just spent a lot of time in the wilderness and living here in Sedona. Even the locals don't see that, but there is wild mint. There's watercress that's still growing, even with the recent freezes we've had. There's just a lot of plants that can be foraged here that grow here in this land of vortices, and it's interesting energetically how they may be impacted. Also, there's wild fruit trees, berry trees. So I'm always looking for them when I'm out in the afternoon when I go for my hikes.
Awesome. Yeah. So even though we're in a desert, we're in Sedona, Arizona, for those of you who don't know, that is a desert scape. But there's still so much abundance and still so much life and nourishing foods and plant medicines that we can find.
Well, we're along a riparian area, being along Oak Creek in the Verde. And what's really amazing about Oak Creek, and I didn't know this until about a year ago. I always thought it came from snowmelt up in Colorado. It comes from hundreds of springs. That's pretty amazing to have the major riparian area in northern Arizona to come from hundreds of springs up in the canyon.
The canyon meaning Flagstaff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I get a lot of my fresh spring water from is in Flagstaff. There is a spring called the Harding Spring.
Yep.
You get your water there too. And it's just amazing. You can taste the difference. I can feel the difference in my body when I'm putting that water.
I talked to someone who got the water after there was an electrical storm up there, and he said he could tell the difference. But here's the other distinction. I go to Waterworks to get my water, and I get the water up at the Harding Spring too. But there was a forest fire there years ago, and they sprayed a lot of retardant leaching. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just aware of these things, right?
That's true. You have to be really mindful of the environment. The world that we live in does have so many toxins in the air and the water and the ground. So yeah, important to just be aware and do testing and know where you're getting your stuff from.
It's the whole interconnectedness. Everything's interconnected.
Yeah. So tell me about prickly pear. I know that's actually how we met. You had given me a sample of prickly pear juice. I'd never tried it. It looked like beet juice.
And she was shaking like a leaf in a tree. She was like, what is this medicine? Am I going to hallucinate or whatever?
I was nervous because he had a disclaimer, like rightfully so, but was like, just in case you're allergic, just in case you might have an issue with this.
Well, the disclaimer was I've shared it with a couple hundred people here. Only a couple people had a bad experience. One who will remain unnamed, who we both know, who's a big influencer. He's a bit of a nutcase, but anyway, I digress. The prickly pear fruit is an amazing elixir that grows here locally. And I came here from New Mexico and I always looked at it, but I never really harvested it. And I began harvesting it here, and just such an amazing plant medicine in terms of the nutrition, minerals, vitamins, and also growing from the land, right? Macrobiotic.
Yeah, it's got that pink pigment. Do you know what that's beneficial for?
Well, think about the chakras. Which chakra is more red or pink?
So your root
chakra. But it's just loaded with nutrition. And once again, the way that I'm wired is it was very important for the natives too. Particularly in Texas with some of the tribes, and these are accounts from the 1600s, without the prickly pear harvest, they would have died. And so for 2 months, they had an epic harvest there, and they just rejoiced and danced, and they were just so filled with love and honor for this local plant that was growing in the desert, before any stores or anything. And it's pretty tasty too, wouldn't you admit?
Yeah, there's
no sugar.
It's really tasty. I've had prickly pear kombucha that was my first experience, nowhere near in comparison to just the real stuff, right?
Mhm.
Harvested right from the plant.
Yeah.
So for someone that might be interested in harvesting and foraging their own prickly pear, what would you recommend?
Oh, the season's over.
When is the season?
The season is late in the summer and fall. And actually, I'm wondering with the freezes if I can still harvest some or not. My mistake, and I keep learning, is I should have juiced some and froze them. I forgot to do that in ice cubes. Wouldn't that have been
Oh,
cool?
that would have been awesome. Yeah.
But the season is late in the summer through fall, and they actually hold remarkably well. Those little, I don't know if I ever showed you the little prickly pears, but you can actually just pick them and put them in a bucket, leave them outside your house. They hold really well for a couple months,
Yeah.
which is incredible.
So for if you're listening or watching to this, and you haven't seen prickly pear, it on a cactus, they're probably about this big, maybe.
Mhm.
And they're just these little like pink flower, like they come out of the flowering part of the cacti. They have pickers in them, so you have to be really careful when you remove them from the cacti. That's
Right.
why I haven't personally done it myself
Yeah.
yet. You don't want to be ingesting pickers, or what would they be called?
Well, so the distinction is, yeah, they are the fruit. They're very
Fruit of
sweet,
cacti.
and they're covered with bristles and spurs and everything. And so what I learned was you get barbecue skewers, you pick them, then you flash them with fire. I have a little kind of blowtorch, and you think, well, toxins, but I'm also peeling out. I do it really quickly, and then I'm peeling the outer layer, and then I juice them. So I don't use a blender or anything. I do it by hand. It takes sometimes like half an hour to make a glass, but then you can drink it all day long because you can reconstitute it 3 or 4 times. So I think it's a really good use of time and energy, connects you with the land. And what could be more powerful than something that grows right outside your door?
Totally. Yeah. And the intention and the energy of going to a plant and harvesting it yourself.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. I actually just learned recently that if you put a seed in your mouth, and you put it underneath your tongue before you plant it, it imprints what your body is needing at a cellular level.
Wow.
And it syncs with your DNA. When you plant that seed in the soil, that plant is literally growing for you and for your needs of your body at that time, which is amazing. So maybe we're not getting exactly to that level, but the fact that we can go and put intention and pick ripeness straight from the plant instead of waiting to get stuff from the grocery store. I've seen prickly pears in the grocery store, like 2 for $3.
Over at
Clark's, and I've had them, they're good, but I don't know when they were picked. They weren't picked straight off of that. They had to go through the shipping process. They had to sit in the grocery store shelves for a while. So the amount of time from harvesting our food to putting it in our bodies is really important, right?
Yeah, I think so. Those come from Mexico, I think. I think those are better than a lot of other so-called foods you could get in the store. But what's interesting is every plant is different in terms of the sweetness and flavor. And so I've got certain plants that I go to and I prefer here, and certain ones that I don't harvest from, or some that are more sour, and I'll mix a little of those more with the sweeter ones. We're actually down in VOC here, which is a little bit south of Sedona, where the fruits grow bigger for some reason. Some of the biggest ones are down here. And it's like, what's going on energetically? They're much larger. Yeah.
So prickly pear, what else? You said watercress. Tell me more a little bit about watercress, where you find that and what are the benefits?
I find it along Oak Creek. Once again, very important plant for the tribes, Apache, Yavapai, Hopi, Zuni. It was a natural vegetable. Watercress is one of the most nutritionally dense foods on the planet. Incredible. But the key distinction is you want it from a good water source, because they also are very sensitive and they absorb nutrition, both good and bad. So like I harvested some in a pretty wild place in New Mexico, but then above the stream, I realized there was cows grazing. It's like, oh God, what a great bunch. I didn't eat those. I do eat small amounts along Oak Creek through Sedona, which is not a pure stream by any means. No problem with that. But then to get to get the stuff that's really good, I go further above town, and then I'll go up to side streams that don't have any runoff or anything. But watercress, nutritionally dense plant, loaded with vitamins and minerals, and once again, it grows here organically. In my connection with the tribal communities, it was so important for them. Yeah.
Just nutritionally important for them?
Well,
Part of
I
their
mean,
diet?
yeah, their diet. I mean, some of them had gardens and such, and others didn't. They were more kind of a meat based, and so it was nice to have a salad
Yeah.
occasionally,
Some
right?
Greens.
Yeah,
Greens in your body.
yeah.
So besides prickly pear and watercress, what else is found in abundance in this valley?
Well, so once again, I think about it in terms of the tribes, and to be honest with you, it was a little bit difficult here. I mean, some of the last remembrances before the arrival of our ancestors and destruction of the tribes were they would actually eat rats sometimes.
Wow.
They would eat rats in caves, deer when they could get them. Quail were a good food source. There was some farming, with beans and corns, but it was a little rougher around here from my understanding, what I've read and what I'm learning.
Beans, corn, and squash, right?
Yeah,
I
the
went,
big three.
The big three, yeah, those are the three sisters. So I went and visited Montezuma Castle, and my parents came and visited in June, and we went to Montezuma Castle, and they still have the ruins up. Have you been there?
Yeah.
They still have the ruins up, and they talked a lot about their where they got their food from, different food sources, how they weathered in Sedona.
So here's actually one of the most important things I could share regarding any food that we eat, particularly the plant medicines. If we're eating well, I'm gonna grab my glass of Purium here for a moment.
Okay.
So, when we eat anything, but particularly good foods, there's medicine and energy in there, but most of us are not mindful with the practice. A very powerful practice, and I'll do it with this Purium, is you hold it in your hands, you honor the plant medicine. It's going to give us benefits anyway, but by doing this little ritual and protocol, it actually amplifies the energy because everything's interconnected. You honor the plant medicine, and then you let it know what your needs are. And so I will just say, today, my needs are grounding, balancing, and dynamic chi for myself and for my work with other people. And if I wasn't on camera, I'd be even more mindful about this. But to have the gratitude, set the intention. And then the other distinction, you're probably aware of this, Mary, is, so I'll drink a little of this Purium. You don't guzzle it down. You take a little drink and you hold it in your mouth, right? Because that's where all nutrition begins. Some people just guzzle it right down.
Yeah, savor it. Same thing with water. I mean, Dr. Emoto did a lot of research, if you're familiar with it. And if you're not, go check his work out. It's really amazing. The frequency that water holds, and our bodies are about 85% water.
Right.
So even, that goes back to how our thoughts are affecting just the cellular structure, because we are composed of water, and that's a big part of it.
Right.
And so I like to infuse my water with gratitude and love and just thank it. I don't always remember, but I try to remember.
Right.
When I get water from the water store, I'll do that, and I'll set an intention over that water. And you can see from Dr. Emoto's work that the pictures of water frozen under microscopes will show different structures if you're, imbuing the water with fear and hatred versus like love and joy. It makes a huge difference. Yeah. And gratitude. So I'm glad thank you for sharing what you do and with Purium, or, just any food. I think that's why I pray and I give gratitude for the people that grew the food, for God, for providing the food, and then just like for the nourishment that it's going to provide in our bodies. It's
the interconnectedness versus duality. But once again, the distinction is all the plant medicines want to help us, and we're going to get some benefits. But when you have that bit of mindfulness and that intention, honor the plant, and then let it know what your needs are, it really responds. And so you can do that with anything, anything you get from like natural grocers or Whole Foods. But that's a very powerful, and I learned that from a tribal member, actually, a mentor and an Apache woman.
And so going with that, that was one of my questions for you. Is for someone that's wanting to maybe wild forage their herbs and do so safely, like obviously you want to make sure the herbs that you're harvesting or the food that you're harvesting actually is indeed that, right? Like, usually like OSHA root is powerful, really great for the lungs, very powerful medicine, but also there could be another herb, I'm forgetting the name of it. There's another herb that looks very similar to OSHA root that's actually really poisonous. So if you're going to wildcraft and get your own food, make sure you know what you're harvesting. Go with someone that's experienced, someone that understands what they're looking for, like how to do the process, but also be really respectful of the land, and of the food and just the space that you're in when you're doing that. So when you are going to these places and you're getting watercress or prickly pear, or whatever it is that you're looking for, is there anything that you do to set intention and be respectful of the land before you're taking?
Yeah, of course. It's about selective harvesting, not over harvesting. Yeah, just that awareness, not being greedy. And by the way, with OSHA root, it's becoming increasingly rare. And I had a friend who's harvesting it in the mountains of New Mexico at high altitudes. That's something we got to be careful, I think, with in terms of not over harvesting it. Coming back here, right here to Sedona, where we are, and from the tribal connection with Yavapai and Apache, there was two really important plant medicines. And it's so fascinating to me. One was called a black root, which some people call red root. And actually the dye from it is what's used for the pictographs around here. And the other medicine, it's so incredible, is a yellow powder that comes from cattail. And it's very seasonal. I'm just learning more about it. I think it was maybe only available for a few days out of the year, but those were the two powerful medicines for the tribes right here. It was the black root and then the yellow powder from the cattail.
What do you know what that's called?
Well, it's just cattail plant and the yellow powder. It's from native wisdom and oral tradition. So that's how they describe it. They don't get into all the Latin stuff and everything.
So black root, you said it was also called red root?
Yeah, I'm still learning more about that. There's a guy at the farmer's market. One guy,
Thunderfoot, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you the one that connected me with him?
I told you about him, yes.
He actually had a little tincture of I can't remember if he called it black root or red root, but
there is red root.
Yeah. But we were reading the same book, Oral Traditions from the Yavapai. So in terms of the tribes here, 4 powerful medicines. There was the black root, the yellow powder from the cattail, and sometimes they would carry that in a medicine bag. And then for the women, it was a white stone, and for the men, it was a blue stone. Now you're going to say, what kind of stone was it? I don't know. That's just how they.
I'm a Virgo. I like to know the details.
That's how they just describe it. But you'll see that I have a lapis lazuli in my pocket, and this one may be a little more vibrant. I'm just kind of carrying that. And actually, I do have here. You should have that for a moment. That's selenite.
It's really good for clearing.
But those were the 4 powerful medicines. 2 of them are plant, and 2 of them were stones. And I don't know what kind of crystals. All I know from reading the accounts is a blue stone for the men, white stone for the women. And then with the oral traditions, there's in New Mexico with the Apache, there's white painted woman. And then there's a white woman here in terms of the Yavapai oral traditions.
Wow. Super interesting.
Yeah.
And going back to the red root, if we're talking about the same herb, I actually had a viral infection last week. And so I was taking red root was one of the things I was taking. I wasn't moving that much, and red root's really great for stimulating the lymph system and cleansing the blood. And so because I wasn't moving a lot and I was just trying to get this congestion out of my body, red root
Mhm.
and osharu were both powerful medicines.
Yeah. And so I'm just a little unusual in terms of we're living here.
Yeah.
And I'm learning from the tribes who lived on this land for
Mhm.
thousands of years. And so I'm always curious regarding what they were using, what they were wild crafting, and how I can honor that and apply that to my own life.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
also interesting in terms of the crystals. And of course, there's so many crystal stores here, right? People come and buy so many stones and everything. But the power with the stones was not only the connection and awareness with them from indigenous people that are much more connected to the land than most people are today, but they would carry these stones, and if there was someone who was going to, you know, energetically try to hurt them or whatever, in
Mhm.
whatever way, the stone might crack
Mhm.
in their pocket, and they knew that it was offering protection for them. Just
Yeah.
so interesting.
That's happened to me with selenite before.
Wow.
Yeah, it is very powerful stuff.
Sedona energetic vampires.
Maybe. Well, thank you so much for sharing all about this. I learned so much.
Mhm.
I always do from our conversations.
Cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why we decided to meet and actually record and share and get this information out to you. So hopefully you found this helpful and informative and insightful. And if you enjoyed what you learned today and you think someone else could benefit from this information, please share, subscribe to this channel, and we will be back talking about another topic soon. Thank you so much. Just gonna cut that short.
That was
'Cause it was like
21 minutes.
20
Wow.
minutes.